welcome back to another episode of BestowCast. Some rumblings in the DCEU, the DC Comics Extended Universe. I don't know. I don't. I mean, it's just the MCU for Marvel Universe. Why I guess the extended universe means that it all counts. Does it all count? Is that what that means? So yeah, it's DCEU. James Gunn just came out not too terribly long ago and made some announcements, and he's here right now in the studio. Hey, James.
Hey, everybody. I'm James Gunn. I'm the co-CEO of DC Studios. So as many of you know, DC has been disconnected in film and television for a long time.
Yeah, no, he's not here in the studio. That's this pre-recorded announcement that he made. Let's see here. Is there a date on this? A week ago from this recording, so probably 2 weeks when this finally airs. So yeah, he made this announcement that what to expect with his new universe. That way we can target some new hate towards the poor guy. I mean, he's only trying to do his job, but hey, let's boycott Guardians of the Galaxy because he fired Henry Cavill, which came back at some point saying that he never fired Henry Cavill. He just needed a new Superman. I don't get it. Everybody just has to be pissed about everything. I just watched a Foamy the Squirrel episode yesterday, and it's just like, there used to be a time when you could just freaking like something, you could just enjoy stuff. Instead, everything, every facet, everything that comes out, you absolutely have to hate it. You can't hate it. I know I'm ringing that same old bell. We've covered this over and over again in the Sleepless Knights. I mean, this is probably the first time it's come over to BestowCast. But geez. Well, before I get into any of that stuff, let's recap some of this other stuff. So I am jacked into the Yoo-hoo tubes to listen to James Gunn. So this copyright strike is brought to you by DC Comics. So let's see what James has to go. And I'm mic'd in, so we can actually provide commentary. This is probably my first commentary track. Ooh.
And it's one of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation.
Now, this is kind of interesting that they're connecting it all to across all mediums. I mean, that's something that Marvel has been pretty much doing for what? Last 10 years or more, maybe even more than 10 years now. And that was kind of a thing that everybody wanted from DC. I get it and I hate it at the same time. After I just complained about everybody hating on something, I like the fact that everything's connected because, I read those comics. I read the Marvel comics and everything, you picked up a comic and it tied into, Spider-Man tied into the X-Men somehow. Wolverine tied into the Avengers somehow, so on and so forth. I always liked how those stories were interconnected. And growing up, I always wanted, if Paul Sanders was going to be king of Hollywood, how would he direct something where, everything would be that the story would connect and stuff. That was kind of a thing that always kind of bugged me when you watch like Superman 2, because they were filmed together, but like Superman 3, doesn't really connect. Batman Returns kind of doesn't really connect. I mean, I guess they do make some references to Vicky Vale, but it kind of seems like its own thing. Movies, like whenever not just superhero movies, but like movies in general, whenever they kind of make sequels, they don't really reference whatever happened in the last one. Consequences never carry over. Like that was always a thing that I hated when it came to superhero movies, or even like movies with like a hero, a defined hero and a villain, where the hero always killed the villain at the end. The hero is always supposed to be striving to be the better person, but at the end of every damn movie, the hero kills the villain, and there's no consequences that ever carry over into any sequels. So when it comes to like the Marvel movies, it was kind of nice that they kind of connected. The negative to it, the thing that kind of bugs me is like now we're, like I said, we're 10 or more, we're greater than 10 years into this thing, and If you haven't watched every episode, if you haven't watched every little thing, that can be cumbersome. That can be problematic when you've got 22 episodes per season and 3 seasons of Agents of Shield. That's and every single one of those episodes count. That's pretty daunting. I'm kind of glad that they've kind of like drawn that back a little bit, where it's like, we don't do, when She-Hulk comes out, it's only like 10 episodes max, there so it's not a huge commitment. And it seems like when on the Marvel end of things that it's it seems like whatever show that they do, it seems like it's a one-off. I don't think that there's very many shows that are slated that are returning for a season 2, or if they're coming into a season 2, they're a spin-off, like Agatha from WandaVision. She's gonna have her own episode. So she gets a spin-off. So these kind of seem like placeovers. Over on the DC end, it was kind of annoying because they plan to have them connected, and then studio execs kind of get greedy, and it's like, well, we have to fast track this because we got to get to this faster than Marvel. We have to have Superman fight Batman right away because Marvel's about to have Civil War, and we have to like be on track with Civil War. So in truncating that, we lose out on the Man of Steel sequel. We lose out on a Batman solo movie. We lose out on things that build up to that Batman versus Superman, and then basically what everybody, and I don't hate Batman versus Superman, but it's not my favorite in the whole like superhero genre. It's just dog shit. It's just there's too much things going on. We cram too much stuff in there because we have to hurry up. There's characters that are in there. I still hold true to like Wonder Woman does not belong in that film whatsoever. Sure, her presence is never really properly explained, and they just wash, rinse, repeat. Justice League was the exact same way: wash, rinse, repeat. And then it got to a point where I guess Jeff Johns had taken over from Zack Snyder, and they were going to do Flashpoint, and I think like Jeff Johns just basically got taken down by whatever was Zack Snyder's dirty laundry. I don't think that Jeff Johns ever really got a fair shake. So there was another another guy that took over, and when the new head of DC, the DC like film franchise, DC Entertainment, when he took over, he's like, oh well, like the movies don't have to, he goes back to this like 1990s kind of aspect where, oh well, the movies don't have to connect to each other. They don't even really have to connect to their sequels. They can just be anywhere and everywhere. And I don't know how much of this affect is from him. I don't know how much of this affect is, just the way it was. But it's like, you watch Aquaman, and Aquaman doesn't really fit in Justice League whatsoever. Aquaman kind of did his own thing, and he ends up with his trident. I don't know where, if this is a prequel to Justice League, well, that doesn't fit whatsoever. And if this is after Justice League, well, there's some things in there that just don't make any damn sense. So trying to judge it as a part of the whole universe as its own is kind of wonky, and then when it's just a singularity, then it's kind of wonky as well. And then Wonder Woman 84. Do I even really have to talk about that? I for one didn't hate Wonder Woman 194. I mean, the whole thing was about wishes. Yeah, it's kind of lame that they did it about wishes, but it's about wishes, and people are like, oh, how can that come true? How can that happen? Oh, how did this thing happen? It's a wish. It's magic. That's how it happens. So we get back to James Gunn, and he wants to interconnect everything again. And he says in there like the animated, the television shows, etc., that they wants them all interconnected, which is kind of interesting too, because the last regime, I don't think, even all the way back to Zack Snyder, I don't think they tried to connect anything. I don't think they tried to connect their TV shows and their cartoons and their, so on and so forth. And then things that happen outside of his approved universe is considered the Elseworlds, which I don't know if we played that audio yet, but it's coming up, where he talks about the Batman sequel and the Joker sequel where those are outside of the universe. So those are considered Elseworlds. Which, if you're a comic geek fan, Elseworlds was basically DC's version of What If. What if Batman was a pirate? What if Superman was raised by the Russians? What if Lobo? What if Lobo was in the westerns? That was actually kind of one of my favorite. It was Lobo the Bounty Hunter. And it was just retelling of all these different classic westerns with Lobo in the center. You still have this other universe that kind of happens outside of his universe, and I mean, you could potentially have Henry Cavill and Dwayne The Rock Johnson come back, and it just be an Elseworlds kind of thing if the demand is high enough. Don't hold your breath on that, but yeah, it's a possibility. Enough of my flap yapping. Let's hear what else he has to say.
That the characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story. And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman or Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds, outside of the mainstream DCU continuity.
Funny that Teen Titans Go is listed on there. I never would consider Teen Titans Go be a part of any continuity whatsoever. But yeah, Teen Titans Go.
Now, Peter and I have gotten pretty lucky in terms of the 4 projects that are coming out over the next year. First, we have Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU, so he connects very well. That moves directly into the...
Pause right before he says it. Yeah, Shazam's kind of an interesting fish. I like Shazam. I actually really enjoyed the Shazam thing. And he was always, just the way it was always portrayed, he was always out of universe. And I think there was a lot of like executive kind of meddling that goes on with that. Because it does kind of connect to Batman, to Ben Affleck's Batman. I think there might even be a photo. The one kid who opens up his drawer and he has all the collection of like articles and keepsakes and everything. And I think there might be a photo of Ben Affleck's Batman in that drawer. So that's all you kind of really get. And, they reference Superman. And I think they wanted Superman. They wanted Henry Cavill to kind of cross over. And at that time, he was fired then. This is pre James Gunn. So they didn't know where he stood. They didn't know if they wanted him back as Superman. So the spoilers, but the cameo that Superman does at the very end, which you actually get the Henry Cavill super suit, is not him in the suit. It's just a double, and then they cropped out his face. But yeah, this is kind of an interesting aspect where Shazam may or may not cross over. I mean, he was always kind of outside of the universe. But let's talk about the cataclysm that might happen or might create the James Gunn universe.
The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love, that resets the entire DC universe. And then to move into Blue Beetle, a fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects.
Flash has always been a kind of a thorn in the side of the DC extended universe or cinematic universe. There's a lot going on with that. What's his name?
Please hold the line.
Ezra Miller. Yeah, he's had some kind of shady things going on, and it just kind of gets all this gets all clouded and convoluted. This is where real life kind of clashes with our whole like movie fantasy viewing kind of thing. From what I understand is that I think Ezra has been signed on at least to complete this. Flash was finished shooting. They had shot everything before all this stuff kind of came up with him. And then people just want him recast and want the movie reshot. I mean, the movie is redone. I don't think they're going to reshoot it. I think, the problematic is they wanted to digitally erase Ezra and put in some other actor. I don't know if that would have worked. I mean, let's look back to Superman's mustache and ask if we can make an entire movie where we erase the Flash, erase one Flash and put in another Flash. No, no, that would never work. Even if it would work, it still, Ezra would probably, because of he still provided a performance, he still would probably get paid for all that kind of stuff. He can't exactly get canceled for that. And it's kind of a sore subject where, Ezra gets to go on filming. He keeps making, I guess he signed on to make more Flash movies. It actually just probably boils down to contract reasonings, not really anything else. They kind of, it's either have him do this or break the contract, and they probably owe a lot of money. And where they're standing right now, that's probably not feasible. But yeah, people are upset where Ezra gets to keep his job, and Henry Cavill kind of has to move on. But I don't know. But I think the problem with the Flash, because people wanted them to Flash, I've seen a lot of things, flush it down the toilet, because we got rid of Batgirl. We might as well just get rid of the Flash. But I think, we got rid of Batgirl. I don't think they could afford to get rid of Flash. I think Flash costs too much to just throw away. And all the way back to the Jeff Johns version, maybe even all the way back to the Zack Snyder version, the Flashpoint movie was always supposed to be a linchpin, that was supposed to be the thing that the whole movie series was going to pivot on, and he was going to, that we were going to reboot the universe, and then we can go in a new direction. Aquaman 2 is just kind of an interesting subject, and that has its own problems with it as well. Blue Beetle sounds kind of interesting too. Now, I've seen some arguments where it's like, well, why are we starting the new universe with Blue Beetle? And I'm like, I kind of feel like Blue Beetle was kind of already in development before James Gunn kind of stepped in. So it's just kind of making this stuff work. And they're probably far enough into their post-production that maybe they can kind of dovetail this into his new universe. But it sounds like only the Flash and part of Flashpoint is basically his pre-universe. And then, all these other things kind of add up. And personally, I'm not going to judge that against his entire universe, because this stuff was already in motion well before he took over.
So, Peter and I, along with a group of very talented writers, have started to map out an 8 to 10 year plan of what DC Studios will be in film, television, and gaming. This first chapter is called Gods and Monsters. Now, what I'm about to tell you, is a part of the first chapter. It's not the entire first chapter. The first project is Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is an animated series. I've written all the episodes. Something we're going to do that's a little bit different at DC is we're going to have characters move into animation, out of animation, usually having the same actor play their voice as who plays them in live action.
Spoilers if you haven't watched the post-credits in Suicide Squad, Sweet Weasel survives, although this could be a prequel to Suicide Squad, and nothing's really stated, but yeah, Weasel's the only one that's in that. I think Amanda Waller has something to do with this as well. Looks like Amanda Waller has a big to do. I think that's what they were kind of trying to build up to in this whole universe to begin with, was that Amanda Waller was going to be the person who is the connective tissue to majority of it. Whether or not you like the Suicide Squad, or you like the original Suicide Squad, or anything else, if you don't like Amanda Waller and you didn't like Suicide Squad, you might have some issues with the new universe. And like I said, I think that's where they were going and before this even what happened, because spoilers, but Amanda Waller appears in Black Adam as well.
Waller. This is a story of Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis. Viola Davis is going to team up with members of Team Peacemaker, and this is a story that's been created by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, who created the Doom Patrol. It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people to see it.
It looks like it might tie closer to Peacemaker, so we can make Peacemaker a part of the ongoing universe. No qualms about that. I'm okay with making Peacemaker a part of it was kind of on the fringe, but I think that's going to be, that's his baby. The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker was his baby and what got him this job, so.
Next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy. This is being written by me. I'm in the middle of it. I'm having a great time doing it. And Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025.
From what I understand, when it comes to like Superman, they're taking a page from the Marvel book, and I'm all for this. I'm tired of every time we have to reintroduce Superman, we have to retell the origin. Every time we have to reintroduce Batman, we have to retell his origin. Every time the Hulk comes back, we have to retell his origin. Every time we do a Spider-Man movie, we have to retell his origin. And Marvel kind of did this thing where when they did the Incredible Hulk, they just went right into it. It's like, hey, you know enough about the Hulk, about his origin, that we can just move on. And I think they just give enough glimpses into his origin that you can figure it out. You know, they pretty much reserve the origins for like lesser known characters, or they just don't spend an entire 2 hours trying to explain somebody's a character's origin. So my understanding is that this is supposed to be a non-origin story. He's already the Blue Boy Scout. He's already up and moving, and he's already doing his thing, and it's supposed to be a younger Superman. So sorry, Henry.
The next thing is a big premiere HBO television series called Lanterns. This is a story of a couple of Green Lanterns, John Stewart and Hal Jordan, and we have a few other lanterns peppered in there, but this is really a terrestrial-based TV show, which is almost like True Detective, with a couple of Green Lanterns who are space cops watching over Precinct Earth. In it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU.
I was always for this kind of concept. This concept has been bouncing around. This concept should have been what the Ryan Reynolds film was. Make it a space cop movie. Don't sit here and spend a whole movie telling an origin of Hal Jordan, when we can just have a space cop movie, and you can have Hal Jordan, and you can have John Stewart, and you can have, you can pretty much have all the Earthbound lanterns, or you can do all the spacebound lanterns. It doesn't matter. Just establish the thing, have a buddy cop movie, and just just get into this. Because if we're going to spend a 2-hour movie explaining each and every gosh darn lantern, this is it's just nuts. And I'm kind of glad that's kind of the route that it seems like they're going to go with. It's kind of this cop drama, which is fine, because then we do the cop drama kind of thing, and maybe we cross genres, and one of those characters appears in one of the films in the future.
The Authority is a passion project of mine. It's based on the marvelous Wildstorm characters we are now bringing into the DCU, and will interact with all of our primary DCU characters. The Authority are a group of superheroes who think the world is broken, and they want to fix it by any means necessary. I think it's a very different look at superheroes.
So the Authority, that's one that I actually don't know about. What I do know about the Authority, or about Wildstorm in general, was
Please hold the line.
What I do know about it was that it was a Wildstorm presentation. It was created by Jim Lee for Image Comics, and then I ended up having to dig into it a little bit more, because I know when Jim Lee came over, and I think he was like one of the heads. He might still be one of the heads over at DC Comics. And when he came over, he brought Wildstorm with him, which kind of has some interesting implications, because, over an Image, everybody pretty much owns their own portion. So, Walking Dead is owned by, that guy. Wildstorm is owned by Jim Lee. Spawn is owned by Todd McFarlane, etc., so on and so forth. Now, this is the Image Comics version. The Wildstorm team is either dead, deactivated, or whatnot, and the Authority is basically the B team. So if anything happens to the main team, the B team kind of steps in, and the Authority kind of just takes over. The Authority also has their own sub team, which is a Wetworks team as well. So that was my brief read of a Wikipedia paragraph. I'm glad I was able to bring that to you. But yeah, I don't know how, obviously they had to reboot a lot of the stuff when they brought it over to the DC end of things. But it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of analog characters. There's a character that's kind of like John Constantine. He's an analog of John Constantine. There's an analog of Hawkgirl. I don't know, I don't know in the comics, did they make these guys actually those characters? Are they just a version of John Constantine and a version of Hawk Girl and so on and so forth? Or are they still, do they still represent their own, whatever they were in the original universe? Hard to say. I mean, DC is the weird thing because DC Comics is like patchworks of everything else. I think DC Comics was their only thing that they had was Batman, and then they bought everything else and moved it on over. So everything that exists in the DC universe is all patchworked, and it's why where you got like duplicate characters, where you have like Captain Cold and Mr. Freeze and so on and so forth, where you have like duplicate characters. But yeah, I'm kind of interested in this. I'm interested in the fact that it's something. It's a superhero team. It's superhero characters I am not familiar with. And so I'm like way into that because then it's like, oh, well, this is kind of something new for me. I'm always on Team Valiant, where it's like, I would love them to make more Valiant movies because I don't read a lot of Valiant.
Paradise Lost is the story of Paradise Island, usually known as Themyscira, which is the birthplace of Wonder Woman. It's almost like Game of Thrones with Westeros, but with all of the inhabitants of Paradise Island. The introduction of the DCU's Batman is The Brave and the Bold. The Brave and the Bold is the story of Batman and his actual son, Damian Wayne. This is based on Grant Morrison's great comic book run. Damian Wayne is my favorite Robin. He's a little assassin who Batman tries to get in line, and so this is the story of the two of them and the beginning of sort of the Bat family in the DCU.
He kind of glosses over. Damian Wayne is Bruce Wayne's son. Him and Talia al Ghul have a son. Talia al Ghul, of course, is the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. So yeah, there's a lot of implications. There's a lot to unpack there, and that would be kind of cool to unpack that in a film franchise. I know like they always have problems where they kind of want like younger actors to play Robin, and it's just kind of like this kind of creepy element where it's like I don't know, would Batman, is it cool to have Batman have a teenage or younger child come with him and take him to gunfights and everything else, whereas this kid's kind of, he's related, first of all. I mean, Bruce is not the most stellar of parents, but at least he's trained. He's trained to be an assassin. This Robin is trained to be an assassin. So it's a little bit more acceptable. And it's a little bit more acceptable than is it Chris O'Donnell playing like a teenage teenage Robin when he's like in his 20s. The oldest teenage sidekick.
Next up is a TV series called Booster Gold. Booster Gold is one of comics' really popular cult heroes. He is a fascinating guy. He's a loser from the future who uses future technology to come back to present day and become a superhero so that people will love him. It is basically the superhero story of imposter syndrome on an HBO Max series. One of my favorite comic book series from last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic film. Now, Superman is a guy who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents, whereas Supergirl in this story, she is a character who was raised on a chunk of Krypton. She watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way, so she's a much more jaded character. And that brings me to Swamp Thing, the last thing we're going to talk about, a very dark horror story in the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing. And although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the story.
All right, so that's it. Supergirl will be kind of interesting. Have they even had a successful Supergirl? I don't think they've ever had we had the one in the 80s and that was kind of it. So it'd be kind of interesting with our modern sensibilities. I think we could probably pull off a Supergirl. Sounds a little doomy and gloomy when it comes to that character, where she's stuck on Krypton, a chunk of Krypton and having to watch everybody else die. So she might be a little bit of a nihilist when she finally gets to Earth. Yeah, okay. And then Swamp Thing, That's that's kind of a no-brainer. They've been talking about Swamp Thing for a while. They've been talking about doing a Swamp Thing John Constantine. They did like a Dark Avengers comic run, and at one time Guillermo del Toro was going to do Dark Avengers, so it'd be kind of nice to see it. I believe they are making a Constantine sequel, so I'm assuming the Constantine sequel is going to be an Elseworlds kind of dealio. So yeah, that's it. I'm stoked for all of it. I was hovering on the fact that I might get rid of my HBO Max subscription because I don't really watch anything after Peacemaker made its rounds. I like rarely ever turn it on. There's like, because movies, a lot of the movies that are on there are on all the other streaming services. There's not really any other. They don't really have anything that grabs me. And then with all the hoopla with the Discovery taking over and firing everybody and changing everything and making, the new HBO is going to be Discovery Max and whatever. And it's like, I kind of just don't care. But at least with James Gunn, I can care a little bit. So, I like the Guardians of the Galaxy. I will give this a shot. I will confess that I'm a Marvel fan, but there is space for everything. I am not going to sit here and judge this and be like, oh, I hate this because I was never a DC fan. Now, there's room for everything. I want to be amazed by anything and everything. There is room for everybody. And honestly, Marvel's starting to become the same old over and over again. We kind of retread the kind of same stories over and over again, where it's kind of this. I'm hoping that this would be a fresh of breath of fresh air. And I'm hoping for a lot. Now, hopefully, the toxic fandom doesn't tank this. I don't get this thing. I don't get this. Why is it when Zack Snyder put out all this movie, when Man of Steel came out, everybody hated it. When Batman vs Superman came out, everybody hated it. When Justice League came out, everybody hated it. Then everybody wanted the Zack Snyder's cut because he was unfairly let go. And then it came out and everybody hated the Justice League cut. Everybody hated the Zack Snyder universe. And then this comes out and everybody's immediately up James Gunn's ass. Everybody's automatically just shitting on him all over it. And now we've got this hashtag of restore Zack Snyder. Like, how does this work out where it's like, you all hated this shit. You all hated Man of Steel. And then Henry Cavill gets fired. And then you automatically love Man of Steel and you want Henry Cavill. Now, granted, a lot of people, myself included, feel like he didn't get a fair shake as that character and he should get a fair shake. Yes. But all of a sudden, it's like, all of a sudden, Man of Steel is like the Holy Grail. All of a sudden, Batman vs Superman is the Holy Grail. All of a sudden, Justice League is the Holy Grail. All of a sudden, Wonder Woman 84 is the Holy Grail. Everybody, this is the best of that DC has. Oh, why should we change everything? Why James? Screw James Gunn, fire him. We're gonna tank his career by not watching a movie that doesn't even take place in the DC universe. We're gonna tank his career over at Marvel. Like, I don't get this. Like, everybody was so venomous and toxic throughout the whole Snyder thing, and now this guy just like barely even steps in. He hasn't even directed his first gosh darn movie, not counting The Suicide Squad or Peacemaker. He hasn't really done anything in this universe, and just him making decisions as the CEO. Is he the CEO of? I guess he's the CEO of like the DC brand. He's the head of the DC brand. He's the co-chairman of the DC brand. And automatically, screw him, hate him, hate. Just give it a chance. Jeez, just give it a chance. Because I kind of feel like this, again, like harking back to Jeff Johns, I kind of feel like that kind of happened to him, where it's just like, I don't even think he even got a chance out the gate, and everything got taken down. But here it is. I'm stoked to see it. I'm stoked to give him a chance. I'm not gonna, I'll hold my, it's not that I don't have negative opinions or anything, but I'm very positive about wanting to see this kind of stuff. I want more of this, and I hope that you want more of this. So I am signing out, but I'm going to play the rest of this audio, and I will catch you next week. Have fun.
I've loved the DC characters since I was a child. They're incredibly important to me. I knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do something very different. One of the things that's very important for me in all of these movies and TV series is that The director's vision and the vision of the writers and all of the creators is unique and something special. Storytelling is always king. That's all that matters to us. And I want to be true to those stories. I want to be true to you guys and really give you something different than you've ever seen before.